be hearing from an incredibly wonderful speaker for our first speaker. So I'm going to invite her to make her way to the stage. So we have the distinct pleasure of being able to hear from Dara Cuenca from the Don Tyson School of Innovation.
There we go. Perfect. Okay. Who are you? If you were to describe yourself to someone, how would you describe yourself? These are questions I always ask myself, are questions I always have a different answer to. Now, there are 3 different ways to answer these questions. 1, honestly. 2nd, in a way where you're trying to make yourself look good. And 3rd, pleasingly, where your answer is only one that you think others will accept you for. Now think about it for a moment. Which of these 3 ways would you answer these 2 questions? Now we'll do a little bit of interaction, a raise of hands, if you will. Raise your hand if you would answer honestly. Okay. Now raise your hand if you would answer in a way of trying to make yourself look good. Okay. And lastly, raise your hand if you would answer in a pleasingly way. For everyone raising your hand, welcome to the life of a people pleaser. I have one definition here for you today, one important definition. Science of the People defines people pleaser as someone who tries hard to make others happy. They will often go out of their way to try to please someone, even if it means taking away their valuable time or resources away from them. Interesting fact, this definition defines me. I am 15, about to turn 16. In my 15 years of being alive, I have lived for others. This definition is exactly who I have been since I was little. And I come to terms with it till around 3 months ago. It wasn't a life-changing experience, a life or death situation. It was one person. And during this time in my life, there was a lot going on, and I was ranting about it to my best friend. And while I was telling her all of this, her facial expression started to change in a very negative way, which made sense with what I was telling her. But in this rant that I was giving her, I told her that I decided to do what one of my friends had asked for me, even though that meant giving up something I really wanted. When I told her this, she looked at me and asked if I was serious. I remember answering yes very slowly because I could see that she was both mad and upset. When I answered her, she looked me straight in the eyes and she told me, "Tienes que parar de hacer cosas por los demás." You need to stop doing things for others. Then she started telling me how she loves that I'm such a nice person, but can only be so nice to a certain point. She ranted 100% putting me in my place. But what she overall said was, life is too short to be spent on pleasing others. You'll never get anything out of life if you keep living this way. So today I stand in front of you to tell you the same thing, to tell you to stop. Stop living for others. Stop putting others' needs before your own. In today's talk, I'll be going over 3 different things. First, the background, which touches on being a first-generation student. Second, the fight, which touches on coming out of being a people pleaser. And lastly, the change, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. So let's begin. The background. According to YouGov America, about half, 49% of Americans would self-identify as people pleasers, including 14% who say they definitely would. 334 million people live in the United States. 49% of that is around 164 million people. 164 million people self-identify as people pleasers. This could be the person sitting right beside you, your best friend, your significant other, your mother, your father, or yourself. Now, being a people pleaser starts differently for each person. Today, I'll be talking about only one way, but depending on the circumstance, it's different for each person on why they feel like they need to be a people pleaser. Today, I'll be talking about being a first-generation student. According to the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators, a first-generation student is when one's parents did not complete a 4-year college or university degree, and they're the first in their family to go ahead and do so. Now, I would consider myself a first-generation student, and that's because I see college in my future. I know that everything I'm currently doing is in order to have college in my future, to be the first in my family to go ahead and do so. But this comes with its handful of challenges. Challenges I know many other first-generation students faced or are currently facing. Now, being a people pleaser as a first gen is different. The people pleasing starts at such a young age. You have this mindset where your parents gave up everything to move to a new country to give you a better life, to give you opportunities they never had, or to give you opportunities you could have never had if you stayed where they grew up. At a young age, our parents put this idea in our head that you have to be perfect, that you have to be perfect at school, that you have to be the top student with the best grades, with the best reputation. This isn't a bad push, but many first gen will push themselves beyond the limit to be this. My parents have always pushed me to do this, to be this. But as years have gone by, their dreams have become mine. But what I want to show you is that it started with people pleasing. Everything I did up until last year was academically possible for my parents. Yes, at some point you also want to be the best. You want the good grades with a good reputation, with being the top student. But at that same time, you only want it because your parents pushed this mindset onto you. And you only do it because you want to make them happy. You want to make them proud. And this is something hard to come to terms with, because you couldn't be more proud for everything your parents have done for you. But at the same time, pleasing your parents here leads you to you pleasing in other parts of your life, creating this domino effect. Now, there's a quote that I think goes perfectly with today's talk, and it goes, "You can be a good person with a kind heart and still say no." And I think this is the best quote to open up this next point with, the fight. There are many difficulties that come when trying to get out of this people-pleasing persona. The fear that you'll lose people you have become so close with because you now stand up for yourself, because you now vocalize yourself a little more. Though this is an okay fear to have. But what you have to understand is that this fight is a fight you can only do alone, because this fight is an inner fight. You are changing yourself. You are choosing to learn how to say no. You are learning to vocalize yourself. This doesn't mean that you have to change the person you've become. I think that's why I love this quote so much, because you can still be a good person with a kind heart and stand up for who you want to be. Live the life that you want by saying no, and it being okay. But that's also something you have to come to terms with, the fact that it's okay to say no. And this fight relieves you from so much. For me, it has made me a better person. It has made me a stronger person. I'm still going through this fight, believe me. But if I was able to start it, I know you can as well. And this leads me to my third point, the change. Now, if during my talk you identified as a people pleaser, or if you knew from the very beginning that you were a people pleaser, it's time for a change. Change is not easy. It can't happen overnight, in a week, in a month, or even in a year. But if you really want to, you can go from living a life of being a people pleaser to living a life that pleases you. But to do that, you need to figure out who you want to be and what you want out of life. Sit down and make a list of your dreams and goals and how you want to be viewed, someone your younger self would be proud of. Define and decide that your value is not dependent on how pleased others are with you, but is dependent on how you live your life. You are stuck with yourself for the rest of your life. Do what makes you happy. Now, I know you can do this because I myself am coming out of being a people pleaser. I am making small changes that will eventually lead to a big change. I am learning to decide how to spend my time according to my values and my goals and not on how others think I should be living my life. I am reminding myself that my worth is not attached to how pleased others are with me, and that I can show compassion while still confidently communicating my own needs and desires. It's taken a lot to become the person I am today, a lot of work. But if I'm being honest, I haven't been as happy as I am today ever in my life. And that is thanks to 4 people. First of all, my mother, who has pushed me to be who I am today. My speech and debate coach, Mr. Peterson, who has always been honest with me. My biology teacher, Ms. Downham, who told me that I was too much of a people pleaser. And lastly, my best friend, Michelle, who looked me straight in the eyes and told me to stop living this life. Without them, I wouldn't be here today. And I hope the impact they had in my life, I was able to have on you today. Thank you.